Welcome to IQ Matrix TV, the home of hundreds of life-altering mind maps. This is Adam, and this is part 4 of a 4-part series of videos where we talk about how to influence people in a very subtle way. In video 1, if you missed it, we discussed the idea of teaching people. So we went through how to teach people, or how to use specifically storytelling, metaphors, analogies, parables to inspire people to think differently about their life and circumstances. That helped us to develop the first level of trust and respect that we need in order to influence people. In the second video, we talked about how to challenge people. So to challenge people, we need to have an established level of trust and respect. And then when we challenge them in certain ways that we discuss within this branch, that helps us to build even deeper layers of trust and respect, which raises our level of influence. In the third video, we talked about how to lead people, and we specifically discussed how to become an influential leader. Empowerment was the key to leadership, and obviously having a compelling vision of the future helps us to guide and direct people in an optimal way. So if you missed any of those 3 videos, they're all linked down below. Definitely do check them out. And that just leaves one final piece of the puzzle for us. And that is the idea of activating people's desires. So you might be wondering, what are these human desires? And how can we use them? Well, human desires are effectively motivation tools that we can use to convince people to do something that we're requesting them to do. So, for instance, let's say that you're asking someone to do a certain task and you're in a sort of leadership position. You're asking them to complete a certain project, or you're asking them simply to do something for you. If you're able to trigger one or more of these desires while making that request, then that person will be more likely to do that thing that you're asking. Specifically, we're going to take a look at 7 specific desires. The desire for change, contribution, let's just highlight them: change, contribution, congruence, connection, control, competence, and creative self-expression. Now, in some ways, we've already covered some of these human desires in other branches of this map, so in other videos. So there will be some overlap here, but I will go into a little bit of detail into each desire to help you better understand how you can start incorporating them into your life and into the requests that you make. The first desire we're going to look at is the desire for change. Now, when we think about change, people often, when it comes to change, they crave variety. So we get bored when things are the same, when nothing changes, where there's no variety in the tasks that we are doing. So to effectively motivate people to do a task, to undertake a certain project, or to follow through with your instructions, we need to address the idea of change. Specifically, we need to provide people with variety in what they're doing. Another way to look at it is to challenge people. Challenge people in a variety of ways. That will help to trigger that variety, give them that variety that they need. Again, making things fun and interesting and exciting can also trigger that variety, and gamifying tasks and activities. So essentially, when you're asking for someone to do something, if they see the task as being repetitive, boring, then yeah, they might go ahead and do it, but they won't be as motivated to do it. So they might not do as great a job as you would have expected. So if you can turn that task and you can provide this person with the idea that this task is going to be more exciting, more fun, and maybe a challenging sort of experience, and maybe you can gamify that experience as well, then that instantly motivates that person to undertake that task. So again, a very subtle form of influence. The next human desire is the desire for contribution. We effectively all want to contribute to a higher cause. We want to work for something bigger and greater than ourselves. Yes, we have our personal goals, we have our personal objectives, but ideally we want to be able to go for something that's larger than life, something where we can contribute to the world, to society, and make a difference in people's lives. So that effectively means that people are essentially desiring more meaning and purpose in the work that they do. So we need to be able to find ways to make work more meaningful and to help people to work with a deeper level of purpose, a sense of purpose in everything that they're doing. So that effectively comes down to giving people or getting people to work towards a vision. And we discussed that in the third video where we talked about leadership, how it's important for a leader to develop that core vision, that vision that will help drive people forward, a compelling vision that will drive people forward toward a certain outcome. The third human desire comes down to congruence. And this essentially is all about consistency. So people essentially want to stay true and consistent with their values and principles. So if, for instance, you're asking a person to do something and this doesn't fit with their values, their principles, the things that they truly believe in, and is sort of, I guess, incongruent with their inner self, then that person won't be as motivated to do that task. But if you give them something that's consistent, that's congruent with their inner selves, with their values, with their principles, then this person will be more likely to do that task willingly. And this is not so much about the request that you make, but about how you present that request for that person. And if they can see that this request that you're making fits with their principles, with their values, and is consistent with the person that they are or the person that they are seeking to be. So that's very important to address the idea of congruence. The next human desire is the desire for connection. Now, we addressed this in the previous video when we talked about leadership. And this essentially comes down to people want to work and collaborate with others. So we seek to connect with others. Specifically, we want to connect with like-minded people. Like-minded people who are working towards the same goal, who have the same values, who have the same principles, who are working towards that vision that you set for them. If you can get people working in collaboration together toward that vision, toward that goal, and you can then make that a fun experience, then people will be more motivated to follow through with the requests that you're making. The next human desire is the desire for control. Again, we addressed this idea in the previous video as well. This is essentially all about providing people with a sense of control. When we're trying to micromanage people, when we're trying to, I guess you could say, boss them around and tell them exactly what needs to happen and what needs to get done from a sort of leadership or managerial perspective, then the person will sort of feel constricted. They'll feel like they haven't got that freedom to do what they want to do, to make their own decisions. People need to feel that they can make their own decisions in certain situations, because that will help motivate them to undertake that task. So give people control to make their own decisions. And if you allow them to have that control, then the requests that you make, they're more likely to follow through with those requests and do a great job. The next human desire is the desire for competence. This effectively comes down to people feeling like they're competent enough to do what you're requesting them to do. So essentially, people need to understand what to do. There's no point in making a request if the person isn't fully aware of what needs to happen to get the job done. They won't be as motivated to follow through or to do as you're requesting them to do. They need to have that understanding first. And that effectively comes down to competence. You need to provide people with adequate skills, knowledge, tools, and resources to get a job done in the first place. If you haven't provided them with these tools, these resources, the knowledge they need to get something done, then the person will be hesitant. They'll make mistakes. So yes, they may follow through with what you're requesting them to do, but what will be lacking is that confidence. They'll lack the confidence they need to competently do their job. And if they don't have the competence, again, that comes full circle and they'll lack the confidence. So you need to be able to increase the level of competence by providing them with the skills, knowledge, tools, and resources they need. That will help increase their confidence, which will also enhance their competence. Competence loop, which we discussed, I think, in the previous video as well. So that's extremely important. So if you can help a person feel confident and feel competent that they can get a job done, then that instantly helps you to have a deeper level of influence when you're making a request, because they have that confidence. So they're not worried about the consequences. They're not worried about making mistakes. They know they can get the job done, and they'll be more likely to follow through. The final human desire is the desire for creative self-expression. So here, people are seeking the freedom to be themselves, to express their creativity, to express their ideas. So they effectively want to be able to express their ideas, to add, to contribute. All right, here, contribute. Contribute their ideas to a cause, to a goal. And if we are suppressing that, if we are not allowing people the freedom to express their creativity, then that immediately shuts them down and they'll be less motivated to do what we're asking them to do. So we need to allow people essentially to think independently and give people the freedom to express their creativity in a multitude of ways. So as we zoom out and get an overview of the 7 human desires, the one thing that we need to keep in mind is that the more of these desires we can activate in any request that we make, the more likely that person is to follow through with those actions. So for instance, if you're making a request and you activate the desire for change, then that's fine. That will help to motivate that person, and you're gamifying tasks, you're making it challenging, fun. Yeah, you'll have that level of influence. But if you can integrate change with contribution, there's congruence there. You can incorporate the idea of connection, giving people control. You're providing the knowledge, skills, and tools, and that's something that happens over time to increase their level of competence, and you allow them creative self-expression. If you can address all these areas in the requests that you make, that is true influence in action. That is when a leader, in a leadership position, you have the greatest degree of influence if you can trigger each one of these human desires in the requests that you make. And this will, of course, take planning. You have to really think through this. Think through each one of these desires and how you're going to incorporate that into your tasks, into your projects, into the goals, into the vision, or whatever that may be. First question is, how can I generate interest? So this first question relates to the idea of change and variety. We need to be able to address this area in order to provide people with more variety, challenge them, gamify the situation. This is why we need to be able to ask, what motivates this person? What motivates them? What variety are they seeking? What inspires this person to act? Or how can I make things more fun and exciting for them? And this is where we start to gamify things. This is where we start to challenge people in a variety of different ways. Effectively, we need to be able to create excitement and build anticipation. And that will address the desire for change, and our requests will therefore be more influential or have more influence and impact on that person's life. In the second question, we address the idea of control. So here is, how can I give people more control? So this is all about people desiring to be able to control what they're doing or to make their own decisions. So another question you could ask is, in what areas would you like to encourage people to act more independently? And I think the idea of independence, that's essentially the key here. We need to provide people with instructions on how they can think independently, or guidance in how they can think independently about working through tasks, projects, activities, or whatever that may be. Another question is, where can you give people the freedom to make their own choices and decisions in certain situations or while working through certain tasks and projects? And then here, allow people to take the lead in certain areas. When people take the lead, they take ownership. And when they take ownership, they're more motivated to work through whatever they're doing. Another related area is the idea of creative freedom or creative self-expression. So how can I give people creative freedom to undertake certain tasks and objectives? How could you inspire people to think more creatively about their life, their circumstances, the projects that they're working on? How could you give people the time and space they need to think independently without the fear of judgment? And I think a lot of the time when we're thinking about creativity, when we want to express our ideas, we want to infuse our own personality into something, we're afraid of judgment. And if you can allow people, given the platform where they know they're not going to be judged for sharing their ideas, for expressing their creativity, then that instantly motivates them to undertake these tasks. Next, let's address the idea of competence. So how can I help people to feel more competent? Now, this is something that you need to address in advance. This is something that you will need to provide people with, because we obviously need to provide people with the skills, tools, and knowledge they need that will help them to get a job done. And you need to also identify where people are struggling. If you don't know where they're struggling, then you can't provide them with adequate knowledge, tools, and skills, right? And then sometimes people even need practical experience that would help them to feel more confident in certain areas. So sometimes someone might be lacking that competence, for instance, to get a job done. You can, for instance, encourage them, you can support them, you can provide them with guidance and direction that might provide them with the confidence they need. And as their confidence goes up, obviously their competence will go up and they'll be more likely to follow through and get the job done in an optimal way. I have left one question till the very end. Now, this question doesn't address any specific human desire that we just talked about, but it does kind of address the whole idea of influence. And that question is, how can I demonstrate that I care? And this is all about getting genuinely interested in other people. If you apply nothing else in this entire map, and all you do is genuinely start caring for other people and become interested in them, then that changes everything. What that essentially does is that raises the level of trust, respect, and right under here, admiration that this person has for you. Everything that you need to influence people in a subtle way is here presented within this map. You just need to study it. You need to learn it. Print it out. Download this map below, print it out, and have it on your wall. Reference it on your tablet. View it daily. Ask yourself the various questions that we have within this map to help you to fully start to apply and integrate these ideas into your life. I hope you found this video of value. If you did, then give it a thumbs up. It really helps the channel grow. And if you haven't subscribed, then subscribe to the channel, click on the bell icon to receive updates. And we will continue to explore a variety of self-development topics to help us to live our best life. And if you want to check out the article for this map, then that's all linked down below in the IQ Matrix blog. It goes into more detail, provides you more questions in each of these areas. If you want to download this map, then definitely check that out. If you want to check out the other videos in this series if you haven't seen them, then check that out below as well. So again, thank you so much for watching. I appreciate your time and I look forward to seeing you in the next episode of IQ Matrix TV. Take care.